For years, the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies has been the leading think tank when it comes to issues concerning African Americans, and Eddie Williams was the longtime leader of that. He died on Monday at the age of 84. He spent 3 decades leading the Joint Center, of course, on so many different issues. It formed to support new black elected officials who came into office in the aftermath of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. In 1972, Williams took the helm and served as the organization's head until 2004. He is credited with building the Joint Center into an epicenter of black political thought and research. Under his leadership, the Joint Center developed a roster more than 10,000 black elected officials and was responsible for the development of several political organizations.
As a result of the resources given to us by the Joint Center, we formed the Congressional Black Caucus, and we are the largest single caucus in the House of Representatives today.
Williams was born in 1932 in Memphis, Tennessee, graduated from the University of Illinois, served in the Army, then began his career as a reporter before launching his political career on the staffs of Senators Edward Kennedy and Hubert Humphrey. In 1968, he joined the University of Chicago as director of the Center for Policy Study. He was also the founder of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Joining us now to discuss his legacy is Melanie Campbell, the current president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Also, of course, Spencer Overton, who is the president and CEO of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Via FaceTime from New York, Fox News political analyst and co-host of The Five, Juan Williams. He authored the book, The Joint Center, Portrait of a Black Think Tank, which commemorated the 25th anniversary of the Joint Center, and also Congressman Jim Clyburn, the Assistant Democratic leader and represents the 6th District of South Carolina. We will go to our elders first, and so we'll start with you, Congressman Clyburn. Just your thoughts about the importance of Eddie Williams to black politics.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Roland. You know, Eddie Williams is one of those one-in-a-lifetime guys. I was around when Eddie took over. In fact, I was around when Frank Reeves and Clarence Towns started the Joint Center about 2 years before Eddie became the director. At the time that Eddie came, the Joint Center was sort of, you might say, hooting with owls. And Eddie came in, turned it into a real think tank, and we began to soar all across the country. Back in 1970, when I first got involved in politics, I used to go in and out of Washington quite a bit, and I would drop in, spend time with Frank Reeves and Clarence Towns, and I got to know the inner workings of the Joint Center quite well. Now, at the beginning, is the Joint Center for Political Studies, and of course, later on, Eddie's vision saw it being broadened into something much more comprehensive. And so now that Spencer Overton, well, I think is doing a great job. I look forward to the day, hopefully by the 50th anniversary in 2020, that we can restore the Joint Center. The time's call for the Joint Center of Political and Economic Studies getting back to the status of a think tank that it used to have.
Juan Williams, in writing the history of the Joint Center, again, for a lot of people out there, they don't necessarily know about think tanks in here in D.C. They might see folks on television, but it played a critical, I mean, we talk about research, providing folks with the data necessary to make decisions, whether when it comes to redistricting, whether when it comes to voter suppression, whether it comes to any number of issues, the role it played under Eddie Williams.
Well, see, I think a lot of the techniques, I think people forget that, you know, in order to be a successful politician, you have to know how to organize a campaign, you have to know how to get out and get votes, you have to know how to register people. And you must remember, Roland, looking back historically, the Joint Center is founded 5 years after the passage of the Voting Rights Act. You know, it's 2 years after Martin Luther King is assassinated. You have a lot of turmoil in the streets in terms of how black people are organizing to achieve equal rights, justice, a greater sense of participation in the American system. It comes just years after, remember, Fannie Lou Hamer standing up for herself, Mississippi Freedom Democrats at the '64 convention. Then you have all the trouble at the '68 convention in Chicago. And here comes the idea that, you know what, we can organize in a different way. It's not necessarily about out front activism. You're going to have people who are behind the scenes making it possible for black politicians. I'm thinking here of people like Richard Hatcher and Gary Carl Stokes in Cleveland, some of the first out front black political mayors, to be effective. And that's what the Joint Center was about. So when you hear Congressman Clyburn talking about some of these older leaders, I mean, it takes me back. I mean, you know, you start thinking about not only the Kennedy brothers who were, you know, instrumental with Ford Foundation there, but, you know, people like Kenneth Clark, the psychologist who was involved even going back to the Brown decision in Thurgood Marshall, but then Louis Martin, who was in the White House for Kennedy, for Johnson, and later for Jimmy Carter. These are people who said, you know, we've got to empower black politicians. We got to make them more effective, stronger, not about, and a lot of people thought this was about creating a third party,
right?
But simply making black people more politically powerful so that you can achieve the goals and aims in terms of full black participation in the American experiment.
Spencer?
Eddie Williams makes it work. You know, like Congressman Clyburn said, he comes in 1972. He basically gets these black elected officials in terms of contacts all of them and gets a list of all of them. So he eventually has 10,000. He starts Focus magazine so that he can be in touch with people on a monthly basis. He founds Melanie's organization, which leads, frankly, to the registration of voters who actually elect Jimmy Carter in terms of changing an election. They opened up an office in South Africa in the aftermath of apartheid to start a democracy there. The budget, he multiplied it times 5, took it from $400,000 to $2 million, and he just made a real think tank with real scholars like John Hope Franklin, William Julius Wilson, Chris Edley, Mary Frances Berry. He really just took Ron Walters. Can't forget Ron Walters. He just took it to the next level. He made it work.
Melody?
Eddie was a mentor and a friend. He helped start the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and even in my 22 years here at the coalition, Eddie Williams was the reason I'm sitting here today. Because when the brothers were trying to push somebody else into a position, Eddie Williams wrote a letter for me and said, "This sister's done the work. You need to put her in position." And he never stopped working. One of the things that people also know, from an international perspective, he really helped get a lot of folks in the Foreign Service, in the State Department. He was a Renaissance man. He connected the dots. He understood the power of the vote, the power of economic empowerment, and how all of that connected to making sure that black people and other folks, marginalized folks, had a good quality of life. I will miss him dearly.
Greg?
As Brother Juan said, you know, Eddie Williams emerges in a historic age. This is the age of heroes, that period after the Civil Rights Act of 68 and well, the Voting Rights Act of 65, really.
Right.
But really what we're facing now is a Renaissance moment. We have to now take this baton. When I look at Melanie and I look at you, Spencer, brother, you know, at this point, we have to now recapture that energy. The 72 political convention, we talked about, I mean, the whole notion of how do you create an intellectual force to lift our people collectively. It's very important.
Shamaka, real quick.
Just real quickly, I think as a younger person, studying people like Eddie, Spencer, etc., it gives me an opportunity to recognize the importance of working with people of different political perspectives, but also the importance of making sure that as a community, collectively, we're working together to make sure that the issues that are of importance to us are at the forefront. All right, then, folks, we are done with the segment. I certainly appreciate it. Melody, thanks a bunch. Congressman Clyburn, thank you so very much. Juan Williams, we appreciate you joining us as well, sharing your insights on the life and legacy of Eddie Williams.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this. If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.